Something strange is happening in many people's lives. No matter how hard you try, you still feel empty. You may have everything you once dreamed of: a stable job, a reliable relationship, a life that, from the outside, looks perfectly fine, but deep down, something feels off. There's a vague sense that you're living out of alignment with yourself, that something important is being lost in the rush and the expectations. We live like kites, lifted by the wind, but always tethered by an invisible string. The fear of losing what we have, the craving for validation, the constant pressure to outdo who we were yesterday. You keep running, unsure why you're even running. You're exhausted, but can't bring yourself to stop. In moments like these, there is another path, quiet, steady, and over 2,000 years old: Stoicism. It's a lifeline for anyone who wants to live with clarity, strength, and depth in a chaotic world. Stoicism teaches you how to stay grounded when everything falls apart, how to remain calm in the storm, and most importantly, how to return to your inner self, the part of you that remains whole. The journey you're about to begin is one of awakening. 7 lessons, each one a mirror, a nudge, a reminder, will guide you away from your former self. And when you reach the end, you won't want to go back. The door is open now. Are you ready to step through? Number 1. The chase that keeps you trapped. Let's begin this journey with a story about a man who keeps running forward, yet never seems to get any closer to where he truly wants to be. He's the kind who never stops. There's always something to do, a goal to hit, a milestone to crush. Every morning he wakes up with a new list of things to conquer: a higher title, a bigger house, a better version of himself. He calls it progress. But the further he goes, the more it feels like running through quicksand. Each step only drags him down deeper. Every achievement quickly gives rise to another expectation. One luxury car demands the next be even more extravagant. One success yesterday means today must be even greater. His mind is no longer the driver. It's become a passenger, dragged along by the very vehicle of ambition he built. Isn't that how it often feels in a world constantly whispering, "You're still not enough"? Where every accomplishment gives only a fleeting sense of relief before thrusting us into the next race. As if satisfaction always waits at the next stop, a place we never reach, only chase. We're no longer living. We're being pulled by the pressure to prove ourselves, to match others, to outdo even who we were yesterday. But is that growth? Or is it just a sophisticated form of escape? What if we stopped? Not gave up, but paused, just long enough to see where we're headed. What if, instead of chasing what we don't have, we learned to stand still with who we are, right here, right now? Maybe at first it would feel terrifying. But then, maybe we'd hear something we've never heard before, the quiet sigh of a mind exhausted from always needing to become. That moment when you dare to do nothing, to stop straining, might reveal something worth thinking about. Perhaps we're not lacking anything. Perhaps we cannot just see that we're already enough. Stoicism gets this. It doesn't reject action, but it warns us to be careful where that action comes from. If you act out of inner emptiness, you're being controlled. But if you act from a place of fullness, that's when you're truly free. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it." Freedom doesn't come from getting everything you want. It comes from no longer being ruled by wanting. Think about it. When you're not obsessed with succeeding, you work with more clarity. When you're not afraid of failing, you create more freely. When you're not trying to prove your worth, you live more honestly. That's the kind of freedom Stoicism is after, not external liberty, but inner independence. The kind no one can give you and no one can take away. But how do you reach that kind of freedom in a world that keeps demanding more speed, more results, more becoming? How do you stay grounded when everything's pulling you away, when applause seduces you and judgment haunts you? The answer isn't to run away from the world. It's to change quietly on the inside, to act no longer out of a need to prove. You don't have to quit your job, retreat into solitude, or abandon your goals. Just shift the mindset behind your actions. Instead of asking, "What will I get if I do this?" ask, "Am I being driven by this, or am I choosing it?" Try letting a whole day pass without measuring yourself by productivity. Enter a conversation without trying to impress. Choose to do something that matters to you, even if no one sees it. Those moments will teach you something no book can, that you don't have to run to be worthy of yourself. What changes a life isn't one grand victory. It's realizing you don't need to keep winning to feel whole. And here's the paradox. Only when you stop trying to become someone do you finally show up as yourself. Freedom isn't some final destination. It's how you walk every day, no longer being chased by your own shadow. And once you're still enough to stop, you'll start to see the next thing you're ready to let go of. Number 2, non-attachment is rational clarity. The first thing you truly need to let go of isn't a person, a dream, or even a specific opportunity. It's the need to know how it all ends. That's what binds you the tightest. The need for control, what often looks like proactiveness, is, in reality, just fear wearing a mask. You're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of uncertainty. And so you cling to goals, to your self-image, to any sense of security. In doing so, you shut down your ability to feel, to adapt, and to welcome what's new. But what happens when you hold on too tightly? You leave no space for anything else. A closed hand cannot receive light. A closed heart cannot touch life. That's the paradox you might be living without realizing it. The harder you grip to keep everything in place, the deeper you fall into a cycle of control, disappointment, control. But when you open yourself up, when you dare to release your expectations, something surprising happens. You don't fall, you rise. Letting go in the spirit of Stoicism is not about surrendering to fate. It is the rational act of a person who is wide awake. You let go not because you're powerless, but because you're wise enough not to force what's beyond your reach. A relationship, a decision made by someone else, a missed chance. These things are not yours to hold. And you don't need to carry everything to feel whole. The real question you need to ask is, what am I gripping so tightly just to feel like I matter? And if you're brave enough to answer honestly, you'll realize sometimes it's in the act of not chasing that the deepest growth begins. Maybe you've been there, loving someone so much that you did everything you could to make them stay. But the harder you tried, the further they drifted. Until one day, exhausted, you let go. Not because the love was gone, but because you could no longer force it. And strangely, it's in that very moment, when you stop clinging, that they finally turn around. Not because you played some game, but because you return to yourself, light, free, no longer distorted by expectation. That moment, however fleeting, is a living example of Stoicism. Not the suppression of emotion, not detachment from life, but mastery of the self amid chaos. Stoic philosophy never taught us to be hard. It taught us to stay awake, to love, to give, to create value with all our heart, just not to let that heart be hijacked by the outcome. Because the moment you depend on a single storyline, they must love me back, this project must succeed, I must be recognized, you give your power away to something you cannot control. On the other hand, when you act without attachment, when you love without possessing, work without needing to prove, give without needing thanks, you become clear-minded, lighter, and that makes you stronger than any tactic ever could. You act not out of fear of failure, but from a deep alignment with who you are. And from that place, you become truly effective, steady, honest, no longer clouded by expectation or shattered when life doesn't go as planned. Marcus Aurelius called this way of living, receive without pride, let go without attachment. When you release your grip on outcomes, you don't lose your drive. You lose the illusion that everything must go your way. And in that letting go, clarity rushes in. Clarity isn't having all the answers. It's knowing when to soften and let life unfold on its own. And life, you only begin to truly feel it when you're no longer dragged around by the question, what happens next? Only when the mind is freed from needing a result does action become pure, untainted by fear, unwarped by expectations. So no, you don't need to start with something big. Just try one thing. The next time you do something that matters, apply for a job, confess your feelings, share a new idea, give it your all. But when it's done, tell yourself, I don't need this outcome to prove my worth. Then move on. As simple as that, but powerful enough to shift everything. If something inside you just opened up, a thought, a pause, or even a breath, then maybe you're ready for a different kind of journey. Not the journey to become someone, but the journey back to who you already are. We don't promise shortcuts here, just quiet reminders and still enough perspectives to help you see more clearly what you're holding and what you're ready to let go of. If that speaks to you, subscribe. Let timely reminders guide you back to your center when life begins to stir up again. Number 3. Real freedom comes from within. There are times when the feeling of emptiness comes, not because we've lost something, but precisely because everything is still there. The job, the loved ones, the daily roles we play so routinely that we no longer even need to think about them. And yet, in between two beats of life, in a sudden quiet pause, we find ourselves sitting in an open space, unsure where it leads. That feeling is often called loneliness, disorientation, or a sense of being lost within your own life. But under the light of Stoic philosophy, that emptiness isn't necessarily a loss. It might just be the first doorway to freedom. What modern humans fear most isn't pain, but silence with nothing to hold on to. We fill it with everything: phone notifications, repetitive conversations, plans for tomorrow. Even worry, vague and shapeless, becomes a sophisticated form of distraction, just to avoid a moment of true emptiness. But in all that filling up, we trade away something deeper, the ability to truly hear ourselves. A mind crammed with noise and expectation has no space for anything to ripen. Like a cluttered room that even light can't penetrate, a crowded mind is no place for clarity or peace. Stoicism doesn't shy away from this emptiness. It doesn't try to paint over it with a cheerful gloss. Instead, it invites us to look directly into it, into the sense of aimlessness, uncertainty, and nothing to prove, and whispers, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." When we no longer have to be someone to be loved, when the roles we carry fall from our shoulders like a coat at the end of the day, we touch the purest part of ourselves. That space at first might feel unsettling, but soon we realize it isn't nothingness. It's openness, not rejection, but return. That's why the emptiness Stoicism speaks of isn't dark or desperate. It's not the panic of deprivation. It's a state of no longer clinging, a clean ground stripped of old assumptions, like the earth after a heavy rain, bare but not barren, silent but not ruined. The Stoics learned to seek that simplicity as a form of wisdom, because only when we stop piling on more can we truly see what we're already carrying. And when you dare to sit with that emptiness, not rushing to fill it, not scrambling for answers, you begin to step into the realm of real freedom, a space no one else can enter but you. In that place, other people's opinions no longer shake your sense of self. Failure loses its power to define who you are, because you've stopped living to prove anything and started living as yourself, unvarnished, whole, needing no extra layer. Strangely, this image isn't unique to Stoicism. Buddhism calls it shunyata, emptiness not as lack, but as boundlessness. The Bible says, "Be still and know that I am God." The sacred doesn't arrive in chaos, it waits in stillness. And in psychology, radical acceptance speaks of embracing yourself completely, no fixing, no judgment, no pressure to be okay. All of these traditions, from east to west, from philosophy to spirituality, converge at one truth. Only in surrender can we receive what is truly profound. So, are you ready to step into that space? Not to escape the world, but to quietly witness it from within. Can you stay with the uncertainty, like a gardener patiently waiting for a seed to break through cold soil? In a world that constantly pushes you to do something, maybe the bravest act is to do nothing. Just listen, just be, like a wide, still lake, calm enough for the sky to reflect upon its surface. If you're ready, or even just standing at the threshold of that stillness, share your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you are on your journey back to the wide open space within yourself. No one can take your peace from you unless you hand it to them. And sometimes, the way to keep it isn't to hold tighter, but to let go. To create more space within you. Space so wide that the little things no longer rattle you. So wide that one day you look back at yourself and realize you were never missing anything. You just hadn't been still enough to see. Number 4, the myth of control. Have you ever paused and asked yourself, why do I feel the need to control everything? The answer rarely lies in a simple desire to be proactive. More often it comes from a deeper, darker place, fear. Fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough, fear that if we don't step in quickly, everything will spiral out of control, not just on the outside, but within ourselves. We're terrified that if we don't hold on tightly, we'll fall apart completely. That's why we tend to overreact to the smallest things. A partner replies an hour late, and our mind spins up scenes of betrayal. An employee doesn't follow instructions, and we explode. Not necessarily because productivity took a hit, but because we no longer feel in charge. A child is overloaded with classes, not because they need discipline, but because parents are afraid the child will fall behind in life's invisible race. These behaviors may seem reasonable on the surface, but when you look closely, they're often driven by the fear of losing the image we've worked so hard to build. Stoicism doesn't ask you to reject responsibility or check out of life. On the contrary, it challenges you with a sharp question. Are you trying to control things out of intention or out of fear? And if it's fear, then what's really running the show? The more someone doubts their own worth, the more they try to manipulate the world around them, as if external control could quiet internal chaos. That's why when Stoic philosophy tells you to let go of what you can't control, it's not just talking about the world out there. It's pointing at the most subtle addictions we carry. Addiction to certainty, to validation, to the illusion that we've got everything under control. Here's the paradox. Truly free people, if you pay close attention, are often the quietest. They don't rush to react. They don't need to prove themselves. They don't demand to be understood, because they're not clinging to anything. They're here to understand, and that understanding gives them clarity. Life doesn't have to be fair or go our way to be meaningful. It only needs to be seen for what it really is. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has, wrote Epictetus. That wasn't meant as a comforting quote, it was a way of life. When you stop defining happiness by what's out of reach, you begin to see what's already in your hands, the power to choose your response, to hold your ground, to live from reason instead of panic. And here's what few are willing to say out loud. Control is a form of addiction. Like any addiction, it gives you the illusion of strength, while actually making you more dependent on things that will never stay the same. The more you are used to things going your way, the less you can cope when life shifts. But life wasn't made to obey you. That's why the Stoic doesn't try to control life. They train so life doesn't control them. So next time you feel irritated by someone's behavior, or anxious when plans fall through, or just impatient while waiting, pause and ask yourself honestly, what am I trying to hold on to? And does it even belong to me? This isn't knowledge meant to skim and forget. This is a practice to live every single day, not to become numb, but to stop drowning in things that were never yours to begin with. And if you've made it this far, it means you didn't just scroll past like usual. It means a part of you knows it's time to stop, time to look again, and that's the start of a change you can't walk away from. Keep reading. What comes next isn't a pep talk. It's a way to move through a world you no longer need to control, yet still learn to stand firm within. Number 5. Action without attachment. A fish doesn't need to know how deep the ocean is to swim. It doesn't need a plan. It just needs to sense the direction of the current. And then it lets itself go with it, graceful but not weak, intentional but not forceful. So why do humans, creatures who call themselves intelligent, live as if they must constantly struggle in a current they can't control? We're taught that if we want something, we have to fight for it, claim it, go all in. But how many times have you burned out from pushing too hard? How many times have you forced a result only to lose yourself in the process? Maybe it's not that you need to try harder. Maybe you just need to stop trying the wrong way. In today's world, people celebrate iron will, never giving up, and crushing every challenge. But here's a truth few dare to admit. Much of our suffering doesn't come from circumstances, but from resisting them. We swim upstream, thinking that's the only way to rise above. But the more we swim, the more drained we become. Not because we're weak, but because we're going against nature. Humans believe we're the center of the universe, that if we control it tightly enough, the world will obey. But Stoicism reminds us, the universe bows to no one. It follows its own logic, and the wise are those who live in alignment with that logic, not fighting, not forcing. This is exactly what Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor at the heart of brutal political storms, discovered in his own stillness. In Meditations he wrote, "Adapt yourself to the life you have been given." He didn't call on us to fight fate. Quite the opposite, he urged us to align with the order nature has laid out, to move with the current of life instead of against it. This isn't giving up. This is wisdom. It's the courage to release the illusion that we know how things should go, and instead to act with awareness, flexibility, and trust. Detached action, when deeply understood, isn't just about letting go of expectations. It's about letting go of the need to resist what's natural. It's when you're in a storm, and instead of shouting, "Why is it raining?" you quietly find shelter. Or you keep walking in the rain, but without complaint. It's when you write an important email, send it, and don't keep checking your inbox every 5 minutes. It's when you love someone wholeheartedly, and if they choose to leave, if that's what's true for them and the universe, you let them go freely. Maybe you've tried to turn the tide, and sometimes it works. But if you always have to force life into your desired direction, are you truly strong, or just resisting out of desperation? To act with a Stoic spirit is to choose what's worth doing, give it your best, and then let the rest move with a current greater than yourself. Not surrender, not indifference, but cooperation, alignment, trust. You can start small. When a plan suddenly falls apart, instead of scrambling to patch it up, pause and ask, if this is happening for a valid reason in the logic of the universe, where is it trying to lead me? When someone rejects you, instead of resisting or resenting, ask, am I swimming upstream towards something that's no longer meant for me? Strangely, when you stop trying to control everything, life flows more smoothly. When you stop cursing the rain, you begin to learn how to dance in it. When you stop fearing failure, your actions carry a calm strength. Detachment doesn't make you passive, it makes you perceptive, more attuned to timing, rhythm, and the invisible patterns of life. And that's when you're no longer being dragged by the world. You become part of the way the world flows. Number 6. The Inner Citadel. Reflection and mastery. There are mornings when you wake up already exhausted, not because you didn't sleep enough or work too hard, but because your mind never really rested. Your body may be still, but your thoughts are racing with scattered fragments. A message you forgot to reply to, someone's cold glance from yesterday, a criticism you thought you'd moved past. You're not living, you're reacting to everything the world throws at you. Your mind becomes an open plaza where anyone can shout, and every echo bounces back twice as loud. Have you ever stopped to wonder, why can a single comment derail my entire day? Why am I so easily shaken? Instead of searching for answers, we often search for someone to blame. Because my boss is difficult, because people are insensitive, because life is just too much. So we start fixing things, pleasing others, avoiding conflict, and building subtle defenses. But even when the outside world calms down, that inner unease still lingers. The reason? We've never actually addressed the core issue, our inner world. If your mind were a fortress, most of us are leaving the gates wide open every single day. Stoicism points us to a hard truth. You don't get to control the world, but you do get to control yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not meant to make you feel better. It's a directive. It urges you to stop forcing the world to change and instead shift the way you perceive, respond, and exist within it. You can start with something that feels almost pointless, sitting still and watching what goes on inside your head. Every time a thought shows up, stand your ground. Ask it, where did you come from, truth or fear? Are you helping me right now or just creating more chaos? Are you calming me down or stirring me up? If you never ask, you'll assume every thought is valid, every emotion worth obeying. And from there, you react with anger, with worry, with defensiveness. What you lose isn't just your peace, it's your autonomy, your ability to choose, which has always been yours. The moment you pause before reacting, everything shifts. A single exhale can become the first act of self-mastery, like a soldier on the battlefield who can't control the wind, the gunfire, or the enemy, but can control his step, his balance, and his blade. What about you? What weapon are you holding, anger or awareness? Psychology calls this process cognitive distancing, creating space between yourself and your thoughts. You are not what you think. This aligns perfectly with Stoic philosophy. And even centuries ago, the book of Proverbs affirmed, "He that ruleth his spirit is better than he that taketh a city." Mastering yourself has always been the highest form of victory. Emotions are part of being human, but you can choose to sit with them like a witness instead of being dragged by them. When anger flares up, when fear knocks, when disappointment clouds your view, you can choose not to act right away. Look it in the eye, name it. Then ask, is this reaction truly necessary, or am I just repeating an old habit? Here's the paradox. You become stronger, not by controlling everything, but by no longer being controlled by anything. Letting go isn't surrender, it's winning where it counts. Because you've found the one place your power never leaves you, inside yourself. And if you're wondering, where do I begin? The answer lies in the very next moment you feel that urge to react. Pause, just one breath. That single second could become the pivot that changes your life. Don't wait for the world to hand you peace. Start building it in the only place that's always yours to command, your mind. Number 7. You are enough when you stop needing more. This is the final stop on our journey, the point where every reflection converges into one core realization. Together, we've explored 6 practices, beginning with the insight that it's the endless chase itself that traps us in a spiral of craving. Gradually understanding that true clarity doesn't lie in control, but in the ability to let go of what was never ours to hold. We've learned to look directly at the illusion of freedom promised by external things, only to discover that freedom emerges only when the inner self has been trained to stand firm. We dismantled the myth of control, that familiar fog that makes us believe everything can be grasped if we just try hard enough. We practiced acting without being tethered to expectations or outcomes, and eventually we built a quiet stronghold within, a place where the mind can take shelter in any storm. All of this leads us here, a principle that seems simple, but is in fact the deepest root of inner freedom. You are enough when you no longer believe you need more. Most of us have whispered to ourselves, just a little more, and I'll be fine. A new opportunity, a bit of recognition, a sign that we're on the right path. But the strange thing is this. The moment we grasp what we've been wanting, something else surfaces to replace it, as if the feeling of not enough always stays one step ahead, keeping us in constant pursuit without ever arriving. Not because we truly lack, but because we've never paused long enough to ask ourselves, what exactly am I missing, and why do I believe I'm missing it? Stoic philosophy doesn't ask us to abandon modern life or reject desire. It offers just one pivotal question. Why is your peace dependent on things you can't control? Money, love, recognition, they're not wrong, but they can't be the center. Because the moment your peace depends on whether you have them or not, you've already surrendered your power. The Stoics lived fully, but not under the grip of longing. They knew that fullness isn't found in acquiring more, but in being free from the endless pull of want. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This was not just a quote, but a hard-won truth carved from years of ruling an empire in solitude and pressure. The happiness we keep projecting into the future has already arrived, in how we think, in how we see ourselves. Only when you no longer need to be enough in someone else's eyes can you realize you were never lacking anything to live a whole life. Pause just for a moment and ask yourself, if tomorrow looks exactly like today, you, just as you are, with all that you have and all that you don't, can you be at peace with that? It's not an easy question, but if you can honestly nod, not with logic, but with a deep inner knowing, then you've just stepped out of the invisible cage that's held you for so long. When you stop asking the world to fill what's inside you, you begin to emit a calm and grounded energy, and that, in turn, draws everything right for you. Love no longer needs to be chased. Opportunities no longer need to be seized. Peace, once thought to be a distant luxury, was always here, waiting for you to be still enough to see it. Take a deep breath and remember, when you stop searching, life will carry you exactly where you need to go. Our journey for today ends here. If you've made it this far, something within you may have already shifted, perhaps a small crack in your old way of seeing, just wide enough for the light to seep in. And if what you've just heard has helped you feel a little calmer, a little clearer about what truly matters, then this journey has already been worth it. But don't let it end here. Keep nurturing that awareness day by day. Deepen your perspective. Return to yourself moment by moment. If you found value in this video, feel free to gently tap like, not to support me, but to let YouTube know this is the kind of content you want more of. And if you're ready to keep walking the path of living slowly, deeply, and mindfully, consider hitting subscribe so this channel can be a place you return to whenever you need a moment of grounding. And now you can simply sit for a while longer. No need to do anything. Just listen to yourself, in stillness, in wholeness. Because sometimes the moment when nothing seems to be happening is when everything begins.